She was just a quiet nurse in seat 25C, wearing blue scrubs and reading medical books. Nobody knew she used to fly the most advanced fighter jets in the world. But when their plane got into trouble and military pilots came to help, they found out the truth. The woman they thought was just a nurse was actually a famous war pilot. When the fighter jet pilots learned who she really was, they did something amazing that shocked everyone on the plane. Before you watch full story, comment below which country are you watching? Don't forget to subscribe. The hum of jet engines fills the air as passengers settle into their seats on Flight 447 from San Diego to Chicago. In seat 25C sits Sarah Mitchell, 34, wearing simple blue scrubs and white sneakers. Her black hair is pulled back in a practical ponytail. A small medical conference badge hangs from her neck. The flight attendant, Jessica, approaches with a warm smile. "Can I get you anything to drink? You look like you've had a long day." Sarah looks up from her medical journal. "Just water, please. Long conference, you know how it is." "Oh, I can imagine. My sister's a nurse too. Always says the medical field never sleeps." Jessica pours water into a plastic cup. "What kind of nursing do you do?" "Emergency room mostly. This conference was about trauma care protocols." "That must be so stressful." "I don't know how you medical people do it, dealing with emergencies all the time." Jessica shakes her head admiringly. "You're all heroes in my book." Sarah gives a small smile but says nothing. She turns back to her journal as Jessica moves on to other passengers. The elderly man in 25B leans over slightly. "Excuse me, dear. I couldn't help overhearing. My wife had a heart attack last month. The emergency room nurses were absolute angels. Thank you for what you do." "Just doing my job, sir." Sarah closes her journal and looks out the window. Far below, the landscape stretches endlessly, a patchwork of fields and cities that she once knew intimately from a very different perspective. What she doesn't mention is that she once operated technology far more advanced than anything in any hospital. The F-35 Lightning II cockpit was her second home for 8 years, where split-second decisions meant the difference between life and death on a much larger scale. The captain's voice crackles over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Williams. We're cruising at 37,000 feet with clear skies ahead." Sarah settles back in her seat, trying to push away memories that surface whenever she hears pilot communications. The calm, professional tone is the same whether you're flying passengers or flying combat missions in hostile territory. A young mother in the row behind struggles with a crying baby. "Sure, it's okay, sweetie. Just the air pressure." Sarah turns around. "First time flying with a baby?" "Yes, and she's been crying since takeoff. I don't know what to do." "Here, try this." Sarah demonstrates a gentle massage technique on the baby's ears. The pressure change bothers their ears. This helps relieve it. The baby's crying gradually subsides. The young mother looks amazed. "Oh my God, thank you. You're a lifesaver. Are you a pediatric nurse?" "Emergency medicine, but we see everything." Sarah smiles genuinely for the first time during the flight. This is why she became a nurse after leaving the military. Direct help, immediate impact, grateful families. The man in 25B overhears. "See what I mean about nurses being angels? My daughter wanted to be a pilot when she was little. Can you imagine? Thank goodness she chose teaching instead. Much safer career." Sarah's smile falters slightly. "Flying can be very rewarding too." "Oh sure, commercial pilots do important work. But military pilots?" He shakes his head. "Those people are crazy. Flying those fighter jets, getting shot at? No thank you." "Someone has to do it," Sarah says quietly, turning back toward the window. What the man doesn't know is that the woman sitting next to him spent 5 years flying combat missions over Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan. That she has more flight hours in the world's most advanced stealth fighter than most pilots will accumulate in their entire careers. Suddenly, the plane hits unexpected turbulence. Passengers gasp as the aircraft bounces and shakes. The seatbelt sign immediately chimes on. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing some unexpected weather. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts," Captain Williams announces, his voice still calm but with an edge of concern. Sarah's body tenses instinctively. Her trained ear catches something in the captain's tone that the other passengers miss. This isn't routine turbulence. The turbulence continues for several minutes, longer than normal. Then it stops abruptly, but the plane's attitude feels wrong. Too steep, turning when it shouldn't be. Sarah unbuckles her seatbelt despite the illuminated sign and walks quickly to the front of the cabin. Jessica tries to stop her. "Miss, please return to your seat." "I need to speak with the flight crew," Sarah says firmly, her voice carrying an authority that wasn't there before. I'm sorry, but passengers aren't allowed in the cockpit area during dash. Trust me, I know aviation protocols. Sarah's tone stops Jessica mid-sentence. Before Jessica can respond further, the plane makes another sharp turn, this time more dramatic. Several passengers cry out in alarm. Sarah braces herself against the galley wall with the practiced ease of someone who's experienced far more violent maneuvers. That's not weather, she mutters to herself, then louder to Jessica. I need to talk to your captain. Now. The urgency in Sarah's voice convinces Jessica to knock on the cockpit door. Captain, there's a passenger who says she needs to speak with you. She seems to know about flying. The door opens slightly. Captain Williams, a veteran pilot in his 50s, looks out with stress evident on his face. This really isn't a good time. We're dealing with a situation here. What kind of situation? Sarah steps forward. I might be able to help. Ma'am, I appreciate the offer, but unless you're a pilot, I don't see how dash. I am a pilot, Sarah says simply. 8 years military F-35 Lightning II. What's your situation? Captain Williams stares at her for a moment, taking in the scrubs, the medical conference badge, trying to reconcile what he's seeing with what he's hearing. Your military aviation? Former. Now I work emergency medicine. But if you're in trouble, my training might be useful. The captain opens the door wider. We've lost contact with air traffic control. GPS is showing incorrect coordinates. And we're picking up what looks like military aircraft in the area. Sarah steps into the cockpit, her eyes immediately scanning the instrument panel. The familiar layout of flight controls brings back a flood of muscle memory. When did you lose ATC contact? She asks, slipping automatically into pilot terminology. About 10 minutes ago. Right after the turbulence started. The co-pilot, Rodriguez, turns to look at her. Are you really military? What's your heading? That's just it, we think we're on course for Chicago, but the GPS is giving us coordinates that put us over Michigan. Way off our flight plan. Sarah studies the navigation display, her trained eyes immediately spotting the discrepancies. This is an equipment failure. Someone's jamming your navigation systems. Jamming? Captain Williams looks alarmed. Who would jam civilian aircraft? Before Sarah can answer, Rodriguez points out the window. Captain, look. In the distance, barely visible against the afternoon sky, are 2 aircraft flying in formation. They're sleek, angular, almost invisible except for the glint of sunlight off their surfaces. Sarah's breath catches. She knows those silhouettes better than anything else in the world. F-35 Lightning II stealth fighters. What are they doing here? Williams asks. Either escorting us or intercepting us. Sarah moves to the radio controls. May I? Williams nods, too stunned to object. Sarah picks up the microphone and switches to a military frequency she knows by heart. Lightning Flight, this is civilian aircraft Flight 447. Do you copy? The response is immediate and professional. Flight 447, this is Lightning Lead. You are in restricted airspace. Identify yourself and state your intentions. Lightning Lead, Flight 447 is a civilian passenger aircraft, United Airlines en route Chicago O'Hare. We appear to have navigation problems. Flight 447, stand by. During the pause, Sarah can see the F-35s adjusting their formation, moving closer to the airliner for visual identification. She knows the pilots are following standard intercept procedures. Flight 447, you are ordered to change heading to 180 degrees and follow escort to designated airfield. Any deviation will be considered hostile action. Captain Williams looks panicked. What do they want? We're just a commercial flight. Sarah takes the microphone again. Lightning Lead, request clarification. Flight 447 is civilian aircraft with 180 passengers on board. No hostile intent. Flight 447, comply immediately with heading change. This is not a request. Sarah realizes that something bigger is happening here. Military fighters don't scramble for navigation problems. They don't intercept civilian aircraft unless there's a perceived national security threat. Captain, change heading to 180 degrees, she tells Williams. But that takes us completely off course. Do it. When F-35s give you orders, you follow them. They have weapon systems that can turn this aircraft into debris in seconds. Williams begins the turn while Rodriguez stares out at the escort fighters. How do you know so much about those planes? Rodriguez asks. Because I used to fly them. Sarah is studying the F-35's formation, noting their positioning. These pilots are serious. This is a combat intercept. She keys the microphone again. Lightning lead, Flight 447 complying with heading change. Request information about nature of intercept. Flight 447, stand by for security verification. Sarah knows what's coming next. They're going to run the passenger manifest through security databases, looking for threats, checking identities against watch lists. Flight 447, confirm you have passenger Sarah Mitchell on board, seat 25C. The three people in the cockpit look at each other in shock. Sarah's face goes pale. They're asking about you, Williams whispers. Sarah takes a deep breath and keys the microphone. Lightning lead, this is Sarah Mitchell. There's a longer pause this time. Then, Mitchell, confirm your service record. United States Air Force, Major Sarah Mitchell, 8th Fighter Squadron, F-35A Lightning II, 2016 to 2024. Service number 447289 Alpha. Another pause. Then, unexpectedly, Major Mitchell, this is Captain Jake Stevens, 421st Fighter Squadron. Ma'am, it's an honor. Sarah's eyes widen. She knows that voice, that name. Jake Stevens was a lieutenant when she was training new F-35 pilots. One of her students. Stevens? Is that really you? Yes, ma'am. Major, we need to talk privately. Can you switch to tactical frequency Bravo 7? Sarah looks at the cockpit radio controls. The civilian aircraft doesn't have military tactical radios, but she knows a workaround. Stevens, I'm on civilian equipment. Can you relay through tower frequency 121.9? Switching now, ma'am. Sarah changes the frequency. Stevens, you're coming in clear. Major Mitchell, we have a situation. About an hour ago, intelligence picked up chatter about a planned attack on a civilian aircraft matching Flight 447's description. We scrambled to intercept, but when we ran the passenger manifest and saw your name, everything changed. What kind of attack? Unknown, but the target is supposedly Chicago. There's a major economic summit happening this week, foreign ministers, trade delegations, major corporate leaders all in one location. Sarah's mind races. A terrorist attack using a civilian aircraft with her aboard creates the perfect cover. If anyone in military intelligence is compromised, her presence gives the attack credibility. Stevens, I need you to listen carefully. I'm not involved in any attack. I'm traveling as a civilian, work as a nurse now. But someone might be using my presence on this flight as a smokescreen. Understood, ma'am. What are your orders? The question stops Sarah cold. Orders? She's not in the military anymore. She's just a nurse in seat 25C. But as she looks out at the F-35s flanking the airliner, as she sees the trust in Stevens' voice and the fear in the civilian pilot's eyes, she realizes that some responsibilities never really end. Stevens, are there other military assets in the area? Yes, ma'am. We have AWACS control, 2 additional Lightning flights on standby, and ground forces positioned at 3 potential target sites in Chicago. What about the jamming on our navigation systems? We detected that too, ma'am. Source unknown, but it started about the same time we received the threat intelligence. Sarah is quiet for a moment, processing. Someone jamming a civilian aircraft's navigation while military intelligence receives specific threat information about that same flight. It's too coordinated to be coincidence. Stevens, I think we're being set up. Someone wants military assets focused on this aircraft while the real attack happens elsewhere. Ma'am? Think about it. Why jam our navigation unless you want us off course? Why provide specific intelligence about this flight unless you want military response focused here? Meanwhile, the real threat could be anywhere else in Chicago. She can hear Stevens conferring with his wingman over the radio. Then, Major, that makes sense. But we still have to treat this aircraft as a potential threat until proven otherwise. I understand. But Stevens, I need you to contact AWACS and have them expand their search pattern. Look for any aircraft or ground vehicles that might be using our position as a reference point. Roger that, ma'am. Standing by. The radio crackles. Major Mitchell, this is AWACS control. We've expanded search pattern as requested and found something interesting. Go ahead, control. We have a ground vehicle convoy approximately 15 miles south of your current position. 3 vehicles moving toward Chicago on back roads, avoiding main highways. They've been maintaining course parallel to your flight path. Sarah exchanges glances with the civilian pilots. Control, can you identify vehicle types? Negative on specific identification, but thermal imaging shows unusual heat signatures from the lead vehicle. Could be electronic equipment or other materials. Sarah knows what other materials means. Explosives, weapons, or other dangerous cargo. Stevens, are you copying this? Roger, ma'am. We're thinking the same thing you are. Control, what's the convoy's current heading? Direct course for downtown Chicago. At current speed, they'll reach the city center in approximately 40 minutes. Sarah looks at the civilian pilots, then back at the radio. She's not in the military anymore, but she's the only person in position to coordinate between the civilian aircraft and military assets. Stevens, I need you to take Lightning II and investigate that convoy. Lightning III and IV maintain escort on our aircraft. Ma'am, with respect, we have orders to escort you to the designated airfield. Stevens, this is bigger than just our aircraft. If that convoy is the real threat and we're just the distraction, then keeping all your assets focused on us is exactly what the enemy wants. There's a pause. Then, Major, I need authorization from higher command. Stevens, by the time higher command makes a decision, that convoy will be in Chicago. Sometimes you have to make the call based on what you know right now. Sarah realizes she slipped back into her role as a senior pilot, making tactical decisions and giving orders to junior officers. Major, you're not active duty anymore. No, I'm not. But I'm the most experienced F-35 pilot currently involved in this situation, and I'm telling you that convoy is your real target. Another pause. Then, Lightning II form on me. We're investigating the ground contacts. Stevens, be careful down there. If they have anti-aircraft weapons, the low altitude makes you vulnerable. Roger that, ma'am. As the two F-35s peel away from the airliner, Sarah realizes that every passenger behind her is probably wondering what's happening. Captain, I should probably talk to the passengers, Sarah says. Sarah leaves the cockpit and walks back into the cabin. The passengers immediately notice that she's been in the restricted area, and several people begin asking questions at once. What's going on? Why are we turning away from Chicago? I saw fighter planes outside. Sarah moves to the center of the cabin where most passengers can see and hear her. Everyone, please listen carefully. We're currently dealing with a navigation system problem that has resulted in military aircraft providing escort assistance. The elderly man from 25B raises his hand. Military escort? What kind of navigation problem requires fighter jets? The kind where someone is deliberately interfering with civilian aircraft systems, Sarah replies honestly. But I want everyone to understand that you are safe. The pilots escorting us are highly trained professionals. A woman near the front speaks up. How do you know so much about this? You said you were a nurse. Sarah takes a breath. I am a nurse. But before that, I was a military pilot. I flew the same type of aircraft that are currently escorting us. The cabin erupts in surprised murmurs. The young mother with the baby stares at her. You were a fighter pilot? For 8 years, yes. The man in 25B shakes his head in amazement. I was just telling you how crazy military pilots are, and you were one of them, Sarah finishes with a small smile. The radio in the cockpit crackles, audible through the open door. Sarah hears Stevens' voice reporting his findings on the ground convoy. Excuse me, she tells the passengers, moving quickly back to the cockpit. Stevens, report. Major, you were right. We have 3 vehicles, and the lead vehicle is definitely carrying something that doesn't belong on civilian roads. Thermal imaging shows what could be explosive materials. Have you contacted ground forces? AWACS is coordinating with Chicago PD and FBI. Ground assets are moving to intercept. Stevens, what's your fuel status? We're good for another hour of operation, ma'am. Control, what's our status? Are we still considered a threat? Flight 447, with Major Mitchell verified on board and the ground convoy identified as the primary concern, you are cleared to resume normal flight operations to Chicago O'Hare. Captain Williams looks relieved. So we can go back to our original flight plan? Not quite yet, Sarah replies. Stevens, what's the status of the convoy intercept? Ground forces are moving into position, but the convoy has split up. Individual vehicles are taking different routes into the city. Sarah realizes that the situation is becoming more complex. 3 separate vehicles mean 3 potential targets. Control, can you identify potential targets in Chicago that match the convoy's approach routes? Major Mitchell, we have multiple high-value targets. The Economic Summit at McCormick Place, the Federal Building, and O'Hare Airport itself. Sarah feels a chill. 3 vehicles, 3 targets, perfect coordination. Stevens, which vehicle are you tracking? We're following the lead vehicle heading for McCormick Place area. Control, where are Lightning 3 and 4? Still maintaining escort on your aircraft, Major? Sarah makes a decision. Control, I recommend splitting Lightning 3 and 4 to track the other two vehicles. Major, you're not authorized to direct military operations. Control, I'm not directing. I'm advising based on tactical situation assessment. The convoy split specifically to divide response assets. We need eyes on all three vehicles. There's a pause while Control consults with higher command. Then, Major Mitchell, higher command requests your assessment of threat priorities. Control, vehicle heading for McCormick Place represents highest threat due to concentration of international targets. Airport represents second priority due to civilian casualties potential. Federal building third priority. Roger, Major. Lightning 3 and 4 split escort. 3 takes airport approach, 4 takes federal building approach. As the remaining F-35s adjust their positions, Sarah watches them through the cockpit windows. These are her former colleagues, pilots following her tactical assessment because they trust her judgment. Stevens, what's your visual on the McCormick Place vehicle? Major, we have eyes on. Single van moving through industrial area south of the target. Thermal signature is consistent with large amount of explosive material. Can ground forces intercept before it reaches the target area? Negative, ma'am. Traffic patterns are keeping police units from getting close. Sarah realizes what needs to happen, but she also realizes she can't make that decision anymore. She's not in command of weapons systems. Control, what are the rules of engagement for the Lightning flights? Major, ROE specify no engagement of ground targets without direct threat to aircraft or verified hostile action. Stevens, can you force the vehicle to stop without engaging? Ma'am, we could make low passes, but that risks civilian panic and might trigger detonation if it's a suicide attack. Sarah is quiet for a moment, weighing options. Control, recommend Lightning flights maintain surveillance and provide real-time intelligence to ground forces. Do not engage unless vehicles present direct threat to aircraft. Roger, Major. But then Lightning 3 reports something that changes everything. Major, the vehicle approaching O'Hare has stopped in a parking structure approximately 2 miles from the airport. Thermal imaging shows unusual activity. Define unusual. The heat signature is spreading, ma'am. Like they're setting up equipment. Sarah's blood runs cold. A parking structure near O'Hare could be the perfect launching point for a rocket attack on civilian aircraft. Control, are there other aircraft inbound to O'Hare? Major, we have 6 civilian aircraft currently approaching Chicago airspace. Recommendation, divert all inbound traffic until the O'Hare threat is neutralized. Roger, implementing traffic diversion now. But Lightning 4 reports more bad news. Major, the federal building vehicle just made an unexpected turn. It's heading directly for O'Hare Airport. Sarah stares at the tactical display. 2 vehicles now approaching the airport area. Her flight is still inbound, along with the diverted aircraft that are now backed up in a holding pattern. Control, we have a problem. 2 vehicles converging on O'Hare suggests coordinated attack on aviation infrastructure. Major, what's your assessment? Sarah looks out at the F-35 still escorting her flight, then at the civilian pilots who are depending on her expertise. Control, I assess immediate threat to civilian aviation. Recommend emergency landing clearance for all aircraft currently airborne, and immediate engagement authorization for Lightning flights. Major, higher command is requesting your personal authentication for that recommendation. Sarah realizes what they're asking. They want her to take responsibility for recommending lethal force. Control, Major Sarah Mitchell, service number 447289 Alpha, authenticating recommendation for immediate engagement of ground targets threatening civilian aviation infrastructure. Authentication confirmed, Major. Lightning flights, you are authorized to engage hostile ground targets. The radio goes quiet for a moment. Then Stevens' voice, Major, Lightning 2 is engaging McCormick Place target. Through the cockpit radio, they hear the distant sound of cannon fire as Stevens' F-35 strafes the parking area. Lightning 2 target neutralized. Secondary explosions confirm hostile materials. Lightning 3 engaging parking structure target. More cannon fire followed by a much larger explosion. Lightning 4 mobile target is turning away from airport. Pursuing. 4 target stopped. Driver is exiting vehicle with hands visible. 4 do not engage. Ground forces move in for capture. Within minutes, all 3 threats have been neutralized. The coordinated attack on Chicago has been stopped. Control, this is Major Mitchell. Situation assessment. All hostile targets neutralized, civilian aviation threat eliminated, Recommend resumption of normal flight operations. Roger, Major. Flight 447, you are cleared direct to Chicago O'Hare. Lightning flights, RTB to home base. But before the F-35s depart, Stevens comes back on the radio with something unexpected. Major Mitchell, Lightning flight requests permission to render honors. Sarah is confused. Stevens, what kind of honors? Ma'am, with your permission, we'd like to perform a tribute flyby. Your tactical coordination saved a lot of lives today. Stevens, that's not necessary. I was just dash. Major, respectfully, you were the senior officer on scene. Your decisions prevented a major terrorist attack. That deserves recognition. Captain Williams and Rodriguez are staring at her. What's a tribute flyby? Williams asks. It's a military honor, Sarah explains, her voice soft with emotion. She keys the microphone. Stevens, I'm honored, but I'm a civilian now. Ma'am, respectfully disagree. Once a Lightning pilot, always a Lightning pilot. Before Sarah can respond, she sees the 4 F-35 Lightning II fighters moving into a tight formation off their starboard wing. The sleek aircraft position themselves in perfect diamond formation. Then, in a maneuver that takes Sarah's breath away, the F-35s execute a precise four-ship salute. They roll inverted in perfect synchronization, holding the position for exactly 5 seconds before rolling back to normal flight attitude. It's a tribute reserved for the highest military honors, performed by the world's most advanced fighter aircraft, for a former pilot who now works as a nurse. The entire cabin of passengers has moved to the starboard side windows, watching in amazement as the 4 fighters hold formation for another moment before peeling away in different directions. Sarah wipes tears from her eyes. In 8 years of military service, she never received a tribute flyby. Stevens, thank you. All Lightning flights, thank you. It's been an honor working with you today. The honor was ours, Major. Safe flight. As the F-35s disappear into the distance, Captain Williams turns to Sarah. In 30 years of flying, I've never seen anything like that. Neither have I, Sarah admits. As they approach Chicago O'Hare for landing, Sarah realizes that her fellow passengers are looking at her completely differently now. The tired nurse in seat 25C has been revealed as something much more significant. Jessica approaches her as she returns to her seat. I owe you an apology. I kept talking about how stressful nursing must be, not knowing that you used to have a job where people were literally shooting at you. Sarah smiles. Both jobs are stressful in different ways. In the military, the threats are obvious and immediate. In nursing, you're fighting diseases and injuries that are just as deadly. The young mother with the baby stops her. I can't believe you used to fly those fighters. How did you go from that to nursing? Because after 8 years of protecting people from a distance, I wanted to help them up close. Both jobs are about saving lives, just using different tools. The elderly man in 25B shakes his head in wonder. When I said military pilots were crazy, I had no idea. You weren't wrong, Sarah replies with a grin. We were definitely a little crazy. But sometimes crazy people are exactly what you need in a crisis. As Flight 447 begins its final approach to O'Hare, Sarah looks out the window at the familiar airport layout. She's flown into O'Hare countless times, but never quite like this. Never as both a passenger and tactical coordinator. The landing is smooth, professional. As they taxi to the gate, Sarah notices several emergency vehicles in the distance, reminders of how close Chicago came to experiencing a major terrorist attack. As passengers begin deplaning, many stop to thank her personally. The young mother gives her a hug. You saved us all today. The military pilots saved us, Sarah corrects. I just helped coordinate. Captain Williams and Rodriguez wait for her at the cockpit door. Major. I mean Sarah, Williams says, I wanted to thank you personally. Without your expertise, I don't know how we would have handled that situation. You would have figured it out, Sarah replies. Good pilots always do. As Sarah walks through the jet bridge, she's met by 2 men in suits. Ms. Mitchell? I'm Agent Thompson, FBI. We'd like to speak with you about today's incident. They escort her to a private office where several federal agents are waiting, along with Colonel Martinez, whom she served under during her final year in the Air Force. Sarah, Colonel Martinez stands up. I heard you had quite a flight today. For the next 2 hours, Sarah recounts every detail of the flight. The FBI agents take notes and ask clarifying questions. Agent Thompson leans forward. Ms. Mitchell, your tactical decisions today saved potentially hundreds of lives. The pilots saved lives. I just provided advice based on my experience. Colonel Martinez opens a folder. Sarah, there's something else. We think you might have been specifically targeted. The terrorists knew you were on that flight. They may have planned the entire operation around your presence. Sarah feels a chill. So they targeted me personally? Possibly. Your service record includes classified missions that significantly impacted enemy capabilities. There are people who would like to see you eliminated. But I'm not in the military anymore. I'm just a nurse. Sarah, you're never going to be just anything, Colonel Martinez says gently. Your expertise, your training, your instincts, they don't disappear when you change jobs. Today proved that. Agent Thompson closes his folder. We're going to need you to take some security precautions for the next few weeks. And we may need to call on your expertise again. I have a job. Patients who depend on me. We're not asking you to disappear, Colonel Martinez says. We're asking you to consider that your unique combination of military and medical skills might be valuable in ways you haven't thought about. As Sarah leaves the airport several hours later, her mind is spinning. In the span of a single flight, she's gone from being an anonymous nurse to being recruited for federal security operations. Her phone rings. It's Dr. Jennifer Walsh, the chief of emergency medicine at her hospital. Sarah, I heard about your flight on the news. Are you okay? I'm fine, Jennifer. Just an unusual travel day. Sarah, we've been working together for 3 years and I had no idea you were a fighter pilot. We've dealt with mass casualty events, situations where your military experience could have been invaluable. Jennifer, I chose nursing specifically because I wanted to leave that life behind. But maybe you don't have to choose, Jennifer says softly. Maybe there's a way to use both sets of skills. As Sarah's taxi drives through Chicago, she sees news vans near McCormick Place, where one of the terrorist vehicles was stopped. The driver recognizes the area. Crazy stuff today, he says. Terrorists trying to blow up the convention center. Good thing the military was ready for them. Yeah, Sarah agrees quietly. Good thing. Her phone buzzes with a text message from Stevens. Major Mitchell, just wanted to say it was an honor serving with you today. You'll always be family. Sarah stares at the message for a long time. Family. The military uses that word differently than civilians do. She types back, "Thank you, Stevens. Take care of yourself and your wingmen." His response comes immediately, "Always, ma'am. Thanks for teaching us that expertise never really retires." As the taxi pulls up to her apartment building, Sarah realizes that Stevens is right. Expertise doesn't retire. The ability to make critical decisions under pressure doesn't fade just because you change careers. She walks into her apartment and looks at herself in the hallway mirror. Same woman who left for the medical conference 3 days ago, but something fundamental has changed. The careful separation she's maintained between her military past and civilian present has been shattered. Her phone rings. It's her sister. Sarah. I saw the news about Flight 447. Please tell me you weren't on that plane. I was on the plane, Lisa. I'm fine. Oh my God, that must have been terrifying. Just sitting there helpless while fighter jets were flying around. Sarah is quiet for a moment. It was complicated. I'm so proud of you for choosing nursing over the military. Can you imagine if you were still flying fighters? How violent would that be? Sarah looks out her window toward the airport, where earlier today she coordinated exactly those kinds of operations. Yeah, she says softly. I can imagine. After hanging up, Sarah opens her laptop and looks up the news coverage. The headlines are dramatic. Terrorist plot foiled by military precision. Former combat pilot coordinates response from civilian aircraft. One article quotes Colonel Martinez. The prevention of today's attacks was made possible by the expertise of a former F-35 pilot who provided critical tactical coordination despite being a civilian passenger. Sarah closes the laptop and sits in the quiet of her apartment. Tomorrow she'll return to the hospital, put on scrubs and spend 12 hours taking care of patients. But she also knows that somewhere in a secure government building, there's a file being created about her role in preventing a terrorist attack. She goes to her closet and pulls out a small box she hasn't opened in 3 years. Inside are her military decorations and a photo of her standing beside an F-35 Lightning II. The woman in the photo looks confident, capable, ready for anything. She looks at her reflection in the bedroom mirror, still wearing the scrubs from her medical conference. The woman looking back at her is also confident and capable, but in a completely different way. For 3 years she's tried to be one or the other, either the combat pilot or the nurse. But today proved that maybe she doesn't have to choose. Maybe the world needs people who can think like warriors and care like healers. Her phone buzzes with an email from Agent Thompson. Ms. Mitchell, attached is information about a position that would involve consulting on aviation security matters while maintaining your civilian nursing career. Please consider it. Sarah opens the attachment and reads about a role that would allow her to use both her military and medical expertise. It's not full-time military service, but it's not hiding from her past either. She places the military photo on her dresser next to a recent picture of herself with her nursing colleagues. Two different uniforms, two different kinds of service, but the same underlying mission: protecting innocent people from harm. For the first time in 3 years, she doesn't see her military and civilian careers as contradictory choices. She sees them as different chapters in the same story of service. Her phone rings one more time. It's Dr. Walsh again. Sarah, I've been thinking about our conversation. What would you say to developing some kind of emergency response protocol that incorporates your military experience? Sarah looks at the email from Agent Thompson, then at the photos on her dresser, then out the window toward the airport. Jennifer, she says slowly, I think that's a very good idea. Really? You'd be willing to share that expertise? I'm starting to think that maybe I have an obligation to share it. After hanging up, Sarah realizes that her day that began with her trying to hide her military background has ended with her considering how to integrate both aspects of her identity. She thinks about the F-35 pilots who trusted her tactical judgment despite her civilian clothes, the FBI agents who want to consult her expertise, the hospital colleagues who are discovering that the quiet nurse they thought they knew has skills they never imagined. Maybe the real lesson of today isn't that she should choose between being a combat pilot or being a nurse. Maybe the lesson is that the world needs people who refuse to choose, who bring all of their skills and experience to the service of protecting and helping others. Sarah opens her laptop and begins typing a response to Agent Thompson's email. She's not ready to commit to the task force position yet, but she's ready to learn more about how her unique background might serve her country in new ways. As she writes, she realizes that the woman who boarded Flight 447 this morning as an anonymous nurse in Seat 25C has ended the day as someone completely different, not because she changed, but because she stopped hiding who she's always been. A protector. A healer. A person whose skills were earned in service of others and should be used in service of others, regardless of what uniform she wears or doesn't wear. The tribute flyby from the F-35 pilots wasn't just an honor for what she did today. It was recognition that some forms of service never really end, they just evolve. And sometimes, they evolve in ways that make them even more powerful than before.